بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله وسلم عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا ابن رسول الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة، يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الخبيثات للخبيثين والخبيثون للخبيثات والطيبات للطيبين والطيبون للطيبات، أولئك مبرؤون مما يقولون، لهم مغفرة ورزق كريم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. We all know the significance of marrying someone pious. This is the first quality that anyone who is interested in getting married, this is the first quality that they look for: piety, righteousness, religiosity. No one wants a spouse that is impious, irreligious, that does not adhere to their faith and religion. The reason is because we fear for our faith. When you marry someone who's not religious, there's a good chance that they might affect your faith. They might take away your sense of religiosity, your sense of piety and religiousness. And you fear for your children as well. When you marry someone, you marry them with the idea that they will raise for you good, proper Muslim children. Children that will abide by Islamic laws. And hence, choosing a spouse is extremely important. Every woman wants a good father for her children. Every man wants a good mother for his children. And hence Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he emphasizes on choosing a good spouse, a righteous spouse, a pious spouse. He would say, اختاروا لنطفكم فإن العرق دساس. Choose for your children, choose for your progeny, because genes get passed on from mother to child, from father to child. فإن العرق دساس. By choosing a mother, you're actually choosing your children. By choosing a father, you're actually choosing which type of children you'd like to have. And he would also say, إِيَّاكُمْ وَخَضْرَاءَ الدِّمَنِ. He would say, be careful of green plants, but in dumpsters, that grow in dumpsters. They would say, Ya Rasulullah, what are you talking about? Green plants that grow in dumpsters. He would say, نعم النبتة الخضراء في النبتة الحسناء في منبت السوء. A good person, a good, attractive looking person, but they come from a bad background, from an evil background, from an irreligious background. Hence the emphasis on choosing wisely, choosing your spouse wisely, whether it's a husband or a wife. He would also say, مَنْ جَاءَكُمْ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ. If someone proposes to you, to your daughter, to your sister, and you accept his faith and his akhlaq, then give him, offer him. This is a person that you should choose for marriage. Faith and akhlaq. These most important qualities that one should look for in a spouse. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We are commemorating in these nights the martyrdom of our second Imam, Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. We all know, a second salawat please. We all know that Imam al-Hasan was poisoned, not by his neighbor, not by his cousin, not by a stranger, but he was poisoned by his own wife. By his own wife. Ju'da bint al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi. Ju'da, she had the appearance of being religious. Apparently she was religious, but we all know that deep down inside she had nothing to do with faith. Ju'da was tricked by Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Muawiyah passed on to her poison, and we will talk at the end, we will talk about the poison that she was given. Where did this poison come from? The poison that entered the system of Imam al-Hasan, and God knows what it did to his guts and his kidneys and his livers. Where did this poison come from? This poison was given by Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan to Ju'da, along with a bag that held 100,000 dirhams, which is a very big amount of money, amount of cash, to pass on the poison to Imam al-Hasan. And not only that, but she was promised to marry Yazid, the son of Muawiyah, the heir to the throne. And hence, she would marry the heir to the throne, and then eventually he would be the Khalifa, the ruler of the time. After she poisoned Imam al-Hasan and she got the money that she wanted, and she wanted to marry Yazid, of course we all know that Muawiyah said, no, you will not marry my son Yazid, because what guarantees that tomorrow someone else will come and pass on money to you and tell you to poison my son Yazid? How will I be sure that you will not do what you did to Imam al-Hasan, to my son Yazid? And hence she did not marry him. And as we say, خسرت الدنيا والآخرة. She lost both dunya and akhirah. She lost Imam al-Hasan, losing akhirah, and she lost Yazid, losing dunya. The important question here, my dear friends, the $1 million question is that why did Imam al-Hasan marry Ju'da in the first place? What got him to marry her? Someone like her, and someone with a father like hers, and we will talk about her father, al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi, notorious for being evil, for being treacherous, for being conniving, for being deceitful. Someone with a father like hers, and someone like al-Ju'da. Why would Imam al-Hasan marry her? Were there not enough women at the time? Was there a lack of women at the time? Out of all the women in the world, why did Imam al-Hasan choose to marry Ju'da? Does that make sense? For Imam al-Hasan to marry someone like Ju'da? Aren't we taught to choose wisely, and choosing a wife to choose very carefully and wisely, to make sure that she comes from a good background, from a positive background. You have to check about her parents, her father, her mother, her uncles, even her uncles. The hadith says, al-khal ahadu al-dhaji'ain. And in Arabic, we learn thulutha al-walad al-khal, that an individual inherits 2/3 of his traits and qualities from his uncle. So what about a father? What about the mother? Aren't we supposed to ask and discover before getting married? So why would Imam al-Hasan marry someone like al-Ju'da? What are the possible explanations? If we were to hear about an ordinary person, not an imam, not a leader, no, an ordinary person marrying someone like similar to Ju'da, not exactly like Ju'da, we'd be shocked. We'd be surprised. So how could Imam al-Hasan marry someone like al-Ju'da? Wa sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. First of all, who was al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi? Her father. A brief background about this notorious individual. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais has a very deep history. If you read about him, his tribe, his sons, let alone his daughter, he has a very notorious background. First of all, he was a Sahabi, a companion of Rasulullah, meaning that he became a Muslim during the time of Rasulullah. And he was from the tribe Al-Kinda. Al-Kinda were a very well-known, big, powerful tribe in Kufa, in the city of Kufa. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais was actually the head of the tribe. He was the head of the tribe of Al-Kinda. He was a Sahabi, and then he became one of the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He was a follower of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he participated in the battle of Siffin, the battle against Muawiyah, the battle between Amir al-Mu'mineen and Muawiyah. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais, not only did he participate in this battle, but he was an army general. He was a general in this battle. Muawiyah, having known that Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais is an army general in the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he tried to buy out Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais. He tried to buy him out. He sent him a handsome amount of money to buy him, and not just Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais. Some of the top generals in the army of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they were bought out by Muawiyah, including some of the cousins of Imam Ali. Some of his own cousins, they were bought out by Muawiyah. Now, Al-Ash'ath was almost going to switch sides from the camp of Imam Ali to the camp of Muawiyah. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali, he sensed deceit. He sensed that Al-Ash'ath is about to switch sides from his army to the army of Imam Ali. So what he did was, he gave him a promotion. Imam Ali gave him a promotion. He changed his status in the army. He was lower ranking, he gave him a higher rank. And that is how he kept him loyal in his army. And indeed, Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais, because he received a promotion, because he received a higher status in the army, he remained in the army of Imam Ali without having to switch sides to the side of Muawiyah. طيب. Nevertheless, Muawiyah kept on pressing to get Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais on his side. It was Laylat al-Harir, the most difficult night in the battle of Siffin. Again, this was the battle between Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam and Muawiyah. Laylat al-Harir was the most difficult night, the longest night in the battle of Siffin. Amir al-Mu'mineen, in that night, he killed 500 soldiers from the army of Muawiyah. By himself, Imam Ali killed 500 soldiers throughout the night. And what is interesting is that he was asked later on about Salatul Layl, that Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, do you always pray Salatul Layl? He says, I always pray Salatul Layl. They told him, even in Laylatul Harir? He said, even in Laylatul Harir. That night where the Amir al-Mu'mineen did not drop his sword for a second. For a second, he was fighting the enemies of Allah. He killed 500 soldiers. Even on that night, Amir al-Mu'mineen prayed Salatul Layl. طيب, on that night, Muawiyah sent a message to al-Ash'ath ibn Qais that stop the war. Stop the war. Why? Because the army of Muawiyah was in retreat. They were retreating. They were losing. And the army of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they were on the offensive. They were about to win the war. They were about to win the battle. Malik al-Ashtar, who was basically the equivalent of a defense minister to Imam Ali alayhi salam, he was leading the army and he was about to go inside Sham and conquer some lands from Sham, from Damascus. Here, Muawiyah sent a message to al-Ash'ath ibn Qais that stopped the war. And indeed, al-Ash'ath ibn Qais, he stood up, he gave a speech to his army, to his followers, because he was a commander in the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he told them that we need to stop the war. Khalas. We are Muslim, the other group is a Muslim, and there's no need for two Muslims to fight. Of course, this is right, but he was saying it in the wrong way. Because who started the war? Amir al-Mu'mineen or Muawiyah? Safin was a defensive battle for Imam Ali alayhi salam, because he was attacked and he was defending himself. When al-Ash'ath ibn Qais gave this lecture, the morale of the army went down and they decided that they should not fight. Here, Muawiyah uses a trick to stop the war. He asked his soldiers to carry on their spears copies of what? The Holy Quran. They raised on their spears copies of the Holy Quran. The army of Muawiyah. The army of Imam Ali alayhi salam, when they saw the spears, when they saw the Quran on the spears, they said, Khalas, we will no longer fight. Imam Ali told them, this is a trick. The army of Muawiyah is tricking you. You're worried about the Quran. They said, we cannot insult the Quran. They are holding the Quran on their spears. How can we insult the Quran by fighting? Amir al-Mu'mineen told them, you're worried about the Quran. I am the Quran. I am the living Quran. I am the verbal Quran. And I am commanding you that we continue the fight. They said no. And this faction that stopped fighting, eventually they became whom? The Khawarij. They became the Khawarij. Malik ibn Ashtar was advancing in the battlefield. They captured him. They told him, stop fighting, otherwise we will kill Ali ibn Abi Talib. Imagine their own Imam. This is not the army of Muawiyah speaking. This is the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam speaking. They told Malik that if you do not retreat, we will kill Ali ibn Abi Talib. So he had to retreat. Here, there was an arbitration, tahkeem, from both sides. From the side of the army of Muawiyah and the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam. They decided to have two arbitrators, two hakam. From the side of Muawiyah, there was Amr ibn al-As. Amr ibn al-As, conniving, a con artist, a liar, whatever you want to call him, you could call him. On the side of Imam Ali wanted whom to be an arbitrator? His cousin Abdullah ibn Abbas. Abdullah was an honest, trustworthy person who knows Imam Ali. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais said, no, not Abdullah ibn Abbas. We will have Abu Musa al-Ash'ari as the arbitrator. Now Imam Ali, he knows Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari was, to put it plainly, someone not smart, not intelligent, not a follower of Imam Ali, not someone who has love and mawaddah of Imam Ali alayhi salam and can easily be bought off. Imam Ali told him, do not have Abu Musa al-Ash'ari as an arbitrator. He will make a mistake. He will fall in the trap of Amr ibn al-As. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais kept on insisting, and we all know what happened in the arbitration. They decided, Amr ibn al-As said, let us both remove Muawiyah and Ali ibn Abi Talib from Khilafah, and we will choose someone else. I said, okay. Amr ibn al-As told Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, you start. Abu Musa removed his ring, and he said, I remove Ali from Khilafah the way I remove this ring from my finger. Amr ibn al-As, being the conniving fox that he is, he said, and I instate Muawiyah in Khilafah the way I put my ring on my finger. Abu Musa fell for the trap. This was some of the stupidity and evil that was committed by al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi. طيب, after the battle of Safin, after the battle of Nahrawan, now Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam fought 3 battles: Safin, Jamal, and Nahrawan. Safin against Muawiyah, Jamal against the leaders of Jamal, Aisha, Talha and Zubayr. Nahrawan was against the Khawarij. After the battle of Nahrawan, Amir al-Mu'mineen wanted to come back and fight Muawiyah again. He wanted to defeat him. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais said, no, we will not fight Muawiyah, because he was bought off. He was bought off, and he gave a lecture, he gave a speech to his army. He made them lose their morale, and they refused to fight. And hence Amir al-Mu'mineen never went back into battle. He kept on telling them, al-jihad, al-jihad, we have to go back against Muawiyah. They refused. After a week, Amir al-Mu'mineen was assassinated in the month of Ramadan, and Amir al-Mu'mineen passed away after 2 days. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais was in Kufa when Abdurrahman ibn Muljam, the assassinator of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he came to Kufa. He stayed at the house of Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais. This individual, he stayed at his house for an entire month. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais, the father of Ju'da, he knew the plans of Abdurrahman ibn Muljam. He knew that Ibn Muljam was planning on assassinating Amir al-Mu'mineen Imam Ali on the 19th, the eve of the 19th of Ramadan. And in fact, he gave him the advice that the best time to attack Ali ibn Abi Talib is at Fajr. He told him this is the best time, because there's not a lot of people for Salatul Fajr. You could easily go in, assassinate him, and leave. He gave him the advice. And hence, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he would say that Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais, his hands are dirty with the blood of Ali ibn Abi Talib, because he helped Abdurrahman ibn Muljam assassinate Imam Ali alayhi salam. Not only that, but this individual, Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais, he had 2 sons that participated in Ashura. On the day of Ashura in Karbala, he had 2 sons, Al-Qais ibn al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi, and Muhammad, 2 sons that participate in the killing and slaughtering of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So this is who Al-Ash'ath is. And these are his sons, Al-Qais and Muhammad. And this is his daughter, Ju'da, who was married to Imam al-Hasan. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam was not the first person to have an evil wife. We know of prophets of Allah who had evil wives. There were imams that had evil wives. The Quran tells us of Prophet Nuh and Prophet Lut. Both of them had evil wives. وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا صالحين فخانتاهما. Allah tells us that He sets an example for those who disbelieve. 2 wives of 2 prophets, Prophet Nuh and Prophet Lut, who deceived their husbands, who backstabbed their husbands. Now this backstabbing and deceit, it does not mean an affair outside of the marriage. No, because we believe that the prophets, the wives of the prophets, would never do such a thing. They would never commit such a crime. No, instead, each one deceived her husband in one way or another. For example, the wife of Lut, she would tell people where guests are, and we know that the people of Lut, they would assault their guests, the male guests who would come in, they would assault them. And the wife of Lut, she would tell them where the guests are. And the wife of Nuh also had some sort of treachery. These are 2 examples of 2 wives of prophets who could be evil. And Rasulullah also had such examples as well. And this is in the Holy Quran. The Quran exposes two wives of Rasulullah who were treacherous. Treacherous not in the affair sort of sense. Na'udhu billah, we do not accuse any of the wives of the Prophet of adultery or fornication. No, but they were treacherous, meaning that they conspired against Rasulullah. In a very famous incident, Rasulullah had 9 wives, and we know the envy between his wives. 2 specific wives of Rasulullah, they were envious of another wife. Who was this wife? Was it Zainab bin Jahsh, or was it Mariya al-Qibtiyya, or was it Sauda? There are various narrations, but the chapter At-Tahrim exposes these 2 wives of the Prophet, and Allah tells them in the Quran that if Rasulullah decides on divorcing you, we will replace you and give him better wives that are Muslim, that are mu'min, that are law-abiding, that are loyal. عسى ربه إن طلقكن أن يبدله أزواجا خيرا منكن مسلمات مؤمنات قانتات تائبات عابدات سائحات ثيبات وأبكارا. And this is a very strong threat to the 2 wives of Rasulullah who conspired against him. طيب, we also know that Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam, who was married to al-Fadl, the daughter of al-Ma'mun, she also conspired against him, and she poisoned him. Imam al-Hasan was not the only Imam to be poisoned by his wife. Imam al-Jawad was also poisoned by his wife al-Fadl. Thus there's a trend. It's not shocking to hear that a prophet or an Imam has an evil wife, or a non-religious wife, an impious wife. This is normal. Or sometimes it could be vice versa. The husband can be evil, not religious, and the wife is religious. The wife is righteous. Like Asiya, bint Muzahim, the wife of Fir'aun. وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا امْرَأَةَ فِرْعَوْنَ. The wife of Fir'aun became an example for all believing people, not just women, men and women. She became an example, although her husband was not just not religious. He claimed to be a god. He didn't just claim to be a god. He claimed to be the God of all gods. فَحَشَرَ فَنَادَى فَقَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. He claimed to be the highest of all gods, but his wife has a place in paradise. His wife was known for her piety and religiosity. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. طيب. Here, my dear friends, there's a very important point that we have to mention in answering why did Imam al-Hasan marry Ju'da, the daughter of al-Ash'ath bin Qais, someone as evil as her, with a father like hers and with brothers like hers. There's a very important point that we have to pay attention to, and it is the following. The prophets, the imams, they have apparent knowledge and they have actual knowledge. What do I mean by that? Someone comes to the prophet or the imam. He claims to be a Muslim. He claims to be a mu'min. Apparently, he's a Muslim. The imam has knowledge of this. Knowledge of what is apparent. He claims to be a Muslim. But deep down inside, this person is a hypocrite. This person is not a Muslim. He's not a mu'min. The imam has knowledge of this. He has knowledge of what is inside a person's heart. He knows whether this person is actually a Muslim or actually a hypocrite. The question is, when the imam deals with such a person, does he deal with him with what is apparent or what is actual? What does the imam do? How does he deal with him? He deals with what is apparent, not with that which is actual. And hence, during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, were there hypocrites or were there not hypocrites? There were lots of hypocrites. وَمِمَّنْ حَوْلَكُمْ مِنَ الْأَعْرَابِ مُنَافِقُونَ Surah Al-Bara'ah. Surah Al-Bara'ah exposes the hypocrites, but not by names. But not by names. There were hypocrites at the time of Rasulullah, but Rasulullah did not expose them. He did not expose any of the hypocrites. He took them for face value. They claim to be Muslim, okay. You claim to be mu'min, that's fine. Rasulullah did not expose them. Why? Because his job is to deal with that which is apparent or that which is actual. That which is apparent. And hence the munafiqeen, they were very careful. They were afraid that a verse will come down and expose them by name. Allah says, يَحْذَرُ الْمُنَافِقُونَ أَن تُنَزَّلَ عَلَيْهِمْ سُورَةٌ تُنَبِّئُهُم بِمَا فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ. Sometimes when Jibreel would come down to Rasulullah, some of the Sahaba, they were nervous, they would shake. They would come and ask Rasulullah, was someone revealed about me? And they would expose themselves in this way. Ya Rasulullah, was there anything revealed about me? About my intentions? Ya Rasulullah, he acted like they were mu'mineen. Because that was his obligation. His obligation was to take from people what they portrayed. It was not his obligation to expose their hearts and their intentions. Let me give you another example to make this idea clear. Imam Hasan alayhi salam received notes from whom? Telling him to rise. The people of Kufa. Who were the people of Kufa? The people of Kufa were the ones that backstabbed Imam Ali. They backstabbed Imam Hasan. Was there a chance that they will backstab Imam Hussein alayhi salam? Obviously. There was. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he knew the people of Kufa. He knew how treacherous they were. He knew how deceitful they were. However, did he deal with them with that which is actual or that which is apparent? That which is apparent. They wrote him letters telling him to come, Ya ibn Rasulullah, come to us. And we will rise, we will defend you. Imam Hussein accepted. Although he actually knew that the people of Kufa are treacherous. He knew they were treacherous. But he is not obligated to follow his actual knowledge. He is required to follow what is apparent, ظاهر, not واقع. Not واقع, ظاهر. طيب. Another example. Imam Ali alayhi salam, one day, he loses his shield. Amir al-Mu'minin didn't need his shield anyway. He would never use his shield. He loses his shield. A Jewish man claims that this shield is mine. They go to the judge, Shuraih al-Qadhi. And of course, Shuraih needs a lecture on his own. Who was Shuraih? What was his psychology? What type of person he was? That requires a lecture of its own. Here, Amir al-Mu'minin did not have enough evidence to prove that the shield is his. The Jewish man, he had evidence to prove that it was his. Khalas, Amir al-Mu'minin gave the shield to the Jewish man. Although actually the shield belonged to whom? Imam Ali, but apparently it was to whom? The Jewish man. Khalas. Amir al-Mu'minin submitted because he's not required to act upon his actual knowledge. A fourth example. 10. How many of our imams were poisoned? 10. Correct? 2 of the imams were slaughtered. Imam Ali alayhi salam and Imam al-Hussein. All of the other imams were poisoned. Question. When the imam is given poison, whether it's in grapes, in milk, in food, when he takes this food, when he's given poison, does he know this is poison or he doesn't know that this is poison? Does he or he doesn't? His knowledge of what is actual, he knows. But is he responsible of that knowledge or what is apparent? What is apparent is that these are grapes. This is not poison. This is milk. This is food. And hence the imam would eat. Why? Because he is not responsible for his actual knowledge. You see? You see? Now you might ask, why? Why can't the imam use his knowledge? And let me give you a real example. Let's say I'm a teacher. and I have students. I have bright students that I know will pass the class. And I have some students that are not so bright. And I know for 100% that they will not pass. Why don't I, as a teacher, from day one, expel the students that are not going to pass? My actual knowledge tells me that this student is going to fail 100%. But should I fail him on the first day or give him a chance? I give him a chance because apparently he's a good student. Apparently he will pass. I cannot base my decisions on my actual knowledge. On my actual knowledge. Why is it that the Imam cannot use his actual knowledge, his special knowledge? The knowledge of ghaib, or his actual knowledge that is given to him by Allah, by the way. The Imam, if he has knowledge of al-ghaib, it's from Allah, not innately. Why can't he make use of this knowledge? For two reasons. Number one, if he makes use of his actual knowledge, he will be questioned. He will not be trusted because it's subjective. If Rasulullah, for example, were to say these individuals were hypocrites, who would believe him? They would say, how do you know? What did they do for them to be hypocrites? You see, Rasulullah would be under question. The Imams would be under question because they are basing their decisions on actual knowledge, not that which is apparent. And that is subjective. They would tell him, Ya Rasulullah, who told you? What is your proof? What is your evidence? And hence he would be rejected. This is one. Two, it wouldn't be fair if the prophets and Imams would act upon their actual knowledge. The rest of us, we don't have actual knowledge. We don't have the knowledge of al-waqi'. We have knowledge of al-zahir, that which is apparent. It wouldn't be fair that the Imam uses his actual knowledge when everyone else uses their apparent knowledge. So the Imam could avoid death. If he's given poison, he could avoid death. He would never die. But for us, we can't. The Imam would have to stand down above everyone else, and that is not fair. You see why the Imam does not base his decisions on actual knowledge, rather on apparent knowledge? طيب. We come to Ju'da. Ju'da bint al-Ash'ath bin Qais, apparently she was what? Was she evil or was she religious? Apparently she was religious. Apparently she was righteous. The Imam had no reason to reject her based on his actual knowledge, because he's not allowed to use his actual knowledge. He's only allowed to use the knowledge of what is apparent. Apparently she was a good wife. He had no reason to reject her. He had no reason to call her out, and hence he married her. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Another very important point that we have to remember, my dear friends, is political marriages. Political marriages were the norm. Not just during the advent of Islam. No, even before, even after. Some of the marriages of Rasulullah were what? They were political. Rasulullah did not base his marriage on lust or desire. If it was based on lust and desire, Rasulullah would marry virgins. He would marry young women. Most of the women that Rasulullah married were widows. Some of them were divorced. Some of them were older than him. If you're marrying out of lust and sexual desire, you wouldn't marry someone older than you. You'd marry someone younger than you. You would marry someone who hasn't been married before. You wouldn't marry widows or divorcees. Rasulullah, a lot of his marriages were political. Even from those two specific wives. Some say, why did Rasulullah marry so and so and so and so? The answer was that it was politics. It was political. Because marriage was a way to form political alliances. Rasulullah was in need, Islam was in need of fulan and fulan to form political alliances. They were important members of Quraysh. And Rasulullah needed the help of Quraysh to expand Islam and for Islam to succeed. He needed them. He needed them. And even in Europe, you see the King of France marries the daughter of the King of England. And the King of England marries the daughter of the King of Austria. And the King of Austria marries the daughter of the King of the Netherlands, and so on and so forth. Why? Because of political alliances. Marriage, even till today, marriage is a form of, can used for political alliances, for two families, two nations, two tribes to make truce, to have a peace treaty, to end violence, to end a long-standing feud and bloodshed. They'd have two individuals get married and that would end. This is a reason. In fact, even Cleopatra of Egypt, who became the pharaoh in Egypt, when Julius Caesar from Rome, he came to Egypt and he conquered Egypt, Cleopatra married Julius Caesar to stay in power. To stay in power, she seduced him and she got him to marry her just to stay in power, because she saw that marriage with Julius Caesar will consolidate her power. And after the death of Julius Caesar, Cleopatra married whom? Whom? Who's read Shakespeare? Mark Antony, the commander of Julius Caesar's army. She married Mark Antony just to stay in power, because marriage is power. Marriage can form a political alliance. طيب. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais, the father of Ju'dah, he was the head, as we mentioned in the beginning, he was the head of the tribe of Al-Kinda. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais Al-Kindi. And this was a very important, very big, very powerful tribe in Al-Kufa. Amir al-Mu'mineen needed to form an alliance with Al-Kinda. Imam al-Hasan needed to form an alliance with Al-Kinda. It would reduce their animosity. It would reduce their hatred. And it would form an alliance, a peace treaty, and at least neutralize them. Even if it's for a certain amount of time, it would neutralize Al-Kinda tribe. And by the way, Imam al-Hasan, he married Ju'dah during the days of Imam Ali alayhi salam. His father was the Khalifa. Imam Ali alayhi salam was the head. It was during the days of Imam Ali. And in fact, Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais came to propose to Imam al-Hasan, and not the other way around. And Imam al-Hasan did not go and propose to Ju'dah. Ju'dah's father, Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais, came and proposed to Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. And by the way, Imam al-Hasan would receive many proposals. He would receive many proposals. Maybe out of all of the Imams, out of the 12 Imams, the Imam that received the most amount of proposals, it was the women that would come and propose. Their fathers, they would come and propose. It was Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. It was Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. طيب. And Imam al-Hasan never had children from her. And maybe that was because of his actual knowledge. He did not have children from her. He married her, but he never had children. He had children from other wives, but not from Ju'dah. طيب. There's another view held by some ulama. They say we don't know why Imam al-Hasan married Ju'dah. And this is a view held by some, an opinion held by some. They say we don't know why Imam al-Hasan married Ju'dah. Was it for political reasons, a political alliance? Did Imam Ali force him or convince him to marry Ju'dah? We don't know. We don't know. All we know is that the Imam does not perform something without a benefit, without a maslahah. There must have been some sort of maslahah, some sort of benefit for this marriage to take place. What was this maslahah? We don't know. But just because I cannot comprehend it, you cannot comprehend it, it doesn't mean that there wasn't a maslahah, a greater good, a greater benefit to the marriage of Imam al-Hasan to Ju'dah. Finally, there's one last theory that says that Imam al-Hasan married Ju'dah to receive martyrdom. Allah wanted for him martyrdom, a Shahadat. And hence, this marriage took place. Why? Because it was the only way for Imam al-Hasan to be assassinated. There was no other way. Imam al-Hasan was heavily guarded, because this was a time when Muawiyah, his intentions were clear that he wanted to assassinate Imam al-Hasan and his progeny, and Imam al-Hussein. Hence, Imam al-Hasan was heavily guarded. He had guards. And Muawiyah wanted to assassinate him. How could he reach Imam al-Hasan if he was heavily guarded? There was only one way, through his wife. It was through his wife. And that was the only way for Imam al-Hasan to reach Shahadat and martyrdom. To receive martyrdom and Shahada it would have had to been through his wife Ju'da. And hence, he married Ju'da. Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, he says, Alhamdulillahi hamdan. May praise be to Allah, hamdan nas'adu bihi fi as-su'ada'i min awliya'ih. Praise be to Allah for us to be happy amongst his companions. وَنَصِيرُ بِهِ فِي نَظْمِ الشُّهَدَاءِ بِسُيُوفِ أَعْدَائِهِ. Thank God. Look at Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. He says, thank God that He has granted us shahada and martyrdom at the swords of His enemies. At the swords of His enemies. This is a gift from Allah. When Allah grants you shahada and martyrdom at the hands of His enemies, the enemies of Allah. وَنَصِيرُ بِهِ فِي نَظْبِ الشُّهَدَاءِ بِسُيُوفِ أَعْدَائِهِ إِنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. Indeed, Imam al-Hasan was poisoned by his wife. You know, your wife, any man knows this. Ask any man and they will tell you, your wife is a source of your comfort. She's your comfort zone. You come home and you could express your sorrows, your agonies, no matter how tired you are. If the entire world is fighting you, but your wife is standing next to your side, you feel strong. You feel you have an army. Although there's only one lady standing beside you, but she's a loyal wife, a supportive wife, you feel like the entire world is standing with you. But if that wife becomes disloyal and stabs you in the back, imagine the pain. Imagine the agony. When your own wife stabs you behind your back and gives you poison. Now, in the beginning, I mentioned that Muawiyah gave the poison to Ju'da. Where did Muawiyah bring this poison from? You know where he got it from? From the Roman Empire. From the Roman Emperor. Rome, meaning Byzantine, the Byzantine Empire, which is modern day Turkey. Because you have the Roman Empire based in Rome and Italy, and you have the Byzantine Empire, which is an extension of the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire. Muawiyah sends a messenger to the Byzantine Emperor telling him that I want the worst kind of poison. The poison that kills immediately. And I want it. He said, yes, we have it, but it will cost you. Muawiyah said that I am willing to pay anything, whatever it takes, but I want this poison. He gives him the poison and he sells it to him. He tells him, why do you want this poison? Who do you want to give it to? He says, I want to give it to the grandson of your enemy, our prophet, his grandson. Your enemy, I want to give it to his grandson. The Byzantine Empire, he said, Ajib, if our prophet, if Jesus had a grandson, we would worship him. And you want to poison the grandson of your prophet? He took the poison, he gave it to al-Ju'da, and Ju'da gives it to Imam al-Hasan. Imam al-Hasan takes the poison, it immediately goes to his liver. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam walks in on his brother al-Hasan. He sees him struggling, one moment lying down, one moment sitting, one moment standing, and he kept on vomiting. Imam al-Hasan kept on vomiting his liver in a bucket. Imam al-Hussein came, sat down next to him. He told him, my brother, why do I see you in such a state? He told him, my brother, Akhi Aba Abdullah, I have been given poison so many times, but none of that poison has damaged me like this. This poison is like none other. As they were sitting and the bucket was in front of him and he kept on vomiting his liver, the liver of Imam al-Hasan was coming out into pieces, as Sayyidah Zainab enters. Imam al-Hasan immediately takes the bucket and he hides it. He says to his brother Imam Hussein, don't let Zainab see. Don't let her see what is happening to me. Zainab enters and she sees Imam al-Hasan in his final moments, poisoned. And Imam Hussein is sitting next to him, consoling him. Imam al-Hasan gives his will. He tells his brother Imam Hussein that I want you to wash me, shroud me, and bury me next to Rasulullah, next to my grandfather Rasulullah, if they allow you to. If not, then take me to al-Baqi', and don't let a drop of blood spill for my cause. Imam al-Hasan departs this life. Imam Hussein watches him. He shrouds him. He puts him in his kafan. He brings him to the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. there was an army waiting. Marwan ibn al-Hakam and Aisha, they were waiting. Aisha said, Nahu ibnakum an bayti, take your son away from my house. This is my house. Ajib, this is your house, ya Aisha? Who did you inherit it from? Didn't your father say that Rasulullah said, Nahnu ma'ashar al-anbiya la nuwarrith ma taraknahu sadaqa? Your father claims that Rasulullah said, we prophets do not leave inheritance. How did you receive this house? How did it become your inheritance? Nahu ibnakum an bayti. And she was riding a mule. She was riding a mule. Ibn Abbas, he saw her. He said, Ya Aisha, yawmun ala baghlin wa yawmun ala jamal. And he told her, Tabaghalti, tajammalti, walau ishti, tafayyalti. One day you ride a camel, and another day you ride a mule. Tomorrow you will ride an elephant. She said, do not bring al-Hasan next to my house. And then the army of Marwan and the followers of Imam al-Hasan engage in spear fighting. Al-Abbas was ready to take out his sword. Imam al-Hussein tells him, La ya Abbas, not today. You have another day waiting for you, but not today. This is the will of my brother. You will not fight. It was here that Marwan ibn al-Hakam ordered his army to shoot the blessed body of Imam al-Hasan. They began shooting his deceased corpse with arrows. They take the corpse to al-Baqi'. When they counted the arrows, they found 72 arrows stuck in the body of Imam al-Hasan. They shrouded him again with a new kafan. Imam al-Hussein brings down the body of Imam al-Hasan to his grave. Imagine the feeling, bringing the body of your brother into his grave. He put him in his grave and he would recite, أَأَدْهُنُ رَأْسِي أَمْ تَطِيبْ مَحَاسِنِي ورأسك معفور وأنت سليب بكائي طويل والدموع غزيرة وأنت بعيد والمزار قريب 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 وأطراف البيوت تحوطه ألا كل من تحت التراب غريب فليس حريب من أصيب بماله ولكن من وراء أخاه حريب. It's as if Imam al-Hussein is telling his brother al-Hasan, my brother, I am lonely after you. How can a brother bury his own brother? I am putting my brother under the soil. My brother, you have left me all alone in this lonely life. What will I do without you? Ya Aba Muhammad, Akhi Ya Hasan. Here we offer our condolences to Fatima al-Zahra, salamullahi alayha. Fatima al-Zahra, she lost so many of her sons. We tell her, Sayyidati ya Fatima al-Zahra, you lost sons. Which one was harder for you? Losing al-Imam al-Hasan or losing al-Imam al-Hussein? One is buried next to you, but where is al-Imam al-Hussein buried? One was given poison by Ju'da, and the other was beheaded by Yazid. نوحي على الأولاد يا زهر الحزينة في كربلاء واحد بالمدينة تفرقوا عنك وصار الشمل تبديد واحد من جعاد قضى واحد من يزيد واحد دفن يميج واحد عنك بعيد قبر الحسن يميج قبر حسين وانا نصبوا يا زهرة اليوم في بيتك عزية، بالدار ناصبها غريب الغاضرية، يبكي على عضيد الحسين مسموم خيا، ليتك يا زهرة كنت يما وتنظرينا. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العلي الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله، اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا هما إلا فرجته، ولا عيبا إلا سترته، ولا خوفا إلا آمنته، ولا رزقا إلا بسطته، ولا شملا إلا جمعته، ولا مرضا إلا شفيته، ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته، ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين.